They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. For founders, a serious setback can be a bit of both. It can either be the end of the line or it can be a massive redirection that changes everything for the better. Same with marathons. And today we're actually going to talk through how marathons and business are related, probably on multiple levels, to be honest. Today, our guest is sharing her personal story of a major early challenge and the key lessons that transformed her entrepreneurial journey. Welcome to Manage Chaos Podcast, where we give you the startup business rundown in less time than it takes for you to get to work. I'm Katrina Purcell, and today I am joined by the incredible Carrie Sporer, the co-founder of SWAIR, a clean, time-saving hair care brand designed for people who work out. I am so excited for this. After meeting her co-founder Meredith while training for the New York City Marathon, they created their hero product, showerless shampoo, so they could stop planning runs around their hair washes, balancing entrepreneurship, fitness, and family life in New York City, which, by the way, is no small feat. I do know that from personal experience. Is passionate about helping others feel confident and fresh no matter how sweaty the day gets. Carrie, sometimes the day can get sweaty enough on the subway. Like, I don't even have to work out.
We don't distinguish whether you're working out or it's just life, any sweat.
My husband knows that our outings are always planned around my hair wash schedule. So I feel like your product could really life change our workout schedule. So I would love to know more just around the business idea. So before we get into setbacks and all of that, I would just love to learn more about sort of how, when you and Meredith met, you were training. How did you guys come up with the idea?
So, like a lot of products in the market, it really just came from personal needs. So Meredith and I, we started the business at the end of 2020, but we actually met back in 2007, which was the first
wow.
marathon we trained for together. So it was more than a decade and a half of complaining that we had to plan our runs around our hair, just what you were talking about. And I think any, woman that has adopted some sort of a regular workout routine understands that that's a real pain point. And we tried everything on the market. Traditional dry shampoos don't work on any amount of sweat, let alone the chemicals and carcinogens that are in them that, if you're working out for your physical and mental health, why are you putting chemicals right on your body? So it was kind of twofold for us. We wanted something that was effective on really sweaty hair and also something that we felt good about putting on, the healthiest version of ourselves.
I love that. And it is so true that regular dry shampoo does not work on really sweaty hair. So we chatted about this before, but I also did an Ironman. And I will tell you what does not help too is like the chlorine from the pool is like, it's just a nightmare once you try and get a good hair care schedule. So talk about the setback that you had as a founder that kind of made you question your entire business.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, Meredith and I started the brand around the end of 2020, which was, pandemic heyday. So it took us a really long time, longer than it normally would, to even develop the formula because the lab that we were working with, and I should also say, neither Meredith nor myself have any knowledge of chemistry. We just
that was going to be in my next question. So we're a chemistry major.
So we kind of knew what we wanted and what we didn't want in a product. And we put together a very extensive brief with the help of Google and started talking to labs to see who would work with us to develop a brand new product. Most labs said, oh, we have a dry shampoo. You can just put your label on it and choose a scent. And that was very far from what we wanted. Yeah. So we were lucky actually before the pandemic to identify a lab that was willing to work with a small business in a financially reasonable way. And we started the iteration process of trying to get the right formula before the pandemic started. And then this went through the pandemic. But because they were working at less than 50% capacity to make sure that everybody in the lab was safe, it took a really long time to get our formulation right. 11 months later, when we finally approved the formulation and placed a PO and found a PR team and started working on our website and all of the logos and labels and, the thousands of decisions and tens of thousands of dollars that went into it, we got a call after the first production run that 5,000 of the 6,000 bottles that we had ordered had a contamination and needed to be disposed of.
Oh, no.
And it was quite shocking and very disappointing, to say the least.
More than half. I mean, almost the whole shipment.
Yeah. So the good news was the lab took financial responsibility
Okay.
for the product. But of course, we had put money into some non tangible things like
Yeah.
PR services and other marketing expenses that we could not recoup. But I would say the vast majority of our expenses, the lab was willing to use their funds to do a reorder, which
Okay.
was great. And had they not been able to do that, we would not be having this conversation.
Do you feel that the relationship you had built throughout that testing process really helped them to feel invested in you to do that?
Yeah, I think so. And it was also just a weird time in business where I think, you know, there were some silver linings where as a small startup, we did get more attention from service providers because a lot of their larger clients, were not making the same amount of product or making any product
Okay.
during
Mhm.
the pandemic. So I think that helped. But the trickiest part was it took us forever to get our packaging because we use PET1 plastic bottles as well as sprayers that were overlapping with what people producing sanitizer and surface sprayer
Uh, no.
during the pandemic. So most of our resources were sold out, and that was the biggest challenge, was finding packaging. And now the world knows that what is in production with SWAIR was not our original plan, but we kind of had to pivot because it was
Okay.
either get the original packaging choice who knows when, or
Right.
plan B. So
And
we
be
went with
be
yeah.
delayed going to market. So how did overcoming that obstacle at such the very like beginning foundational part of your business inform your style of entrepreneurship?
I think that it was the test of all tests that
It seems like it.
really thickened our skin and prepared us for what entrepreneurship and being, independent beauty founders, what every day was going to look like to some extent. So it was one of these situations where it was right up front. It was so much more challenging than we prepared for, but it was that litmus test that every other challenge that has happened since we said, okay, it's not quite as bad as, dumping the vast majority of our product. And when I say dumping, responsibly disposing of
Yes.
our product, a week before we were set to launch, and a bunch of beauty publications were set to announce
Announce.
launch.
So it becomes the sort of, if we can make it through that, we can probably make it through anything, right? I mean, sort of like
Ex-
what they say about living in New York, right?
Exactly. I think most founders and entrepreneurs can agree that you have your day planned out. My Google Calendar is my touchstone. Every single thing I need to do is on it. And then by the end of the day, the amount that has shifted
Move.
to another day and moved around. And that's just the reality of being a business owner. Everyone is like, you wear a lot of hats. And I was like, yes, but the hat I wear the most is the fireman hat, putting out fires
Yes.
every day. So this was like, that 5 alarm blaze right off the bat.
And I think personally, it's great to have that experience
Mhm.
initially because then as long as it tests you, but then you're able to overcome it, it gives you confidence that during the next fire, you're going to be able to overcome it because you now have experience that you did. So, what advice do you have for founders who might be struggling with setbacks? So, let's say they haven't overcome one yet and they're struggling with the thought of failure or just the fact that things aren't necessarily going exactly how they had planned.
Well, I can totally relate. So if anyone listening to this is having those thoughts, just know you are part of the majority and certainly not alone when it comes to founders. But the thing that I've found really the greatest about this journey is just people's willingness to help and asking questions, and even, asking for that financial support of this didn't go the way that we want it, how can you help make this right? Even if it's, certain service providers I've had to go back to and just say, our finances have changed, or I would love to work with you, but this is what you've proposed and this is what I have. Or even silly questions like asking my lab, like, what is phenoxyethanol? Like, this seems like a controversial ingredient. Let's talk about it. Can I
Yeah.
have it in my formula? So everybody's willingness to try and help and answer even the most basic questions has been amazing. And the few people that give you an attitude about it are not the people you want your partners to be anyway.
I agree with that so much. As they say, right, you don't know unless you ask.
Mhm.
And in some cases, other businesses are also either, as you said, during the pandemic, right? They were trying to figure out how to work around losing maybe big customers, and they were more willing to work with you. But if you don't ask and you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to find out. And I think sometimes as founders, we get nervous. We don't want people to know what we don't know. But if they don't know, then they can't help. And
Exactly.
it's so important just in life too, to go out and ask for what you need because there's no way you're gonna get it. We're not mind readers. And so the universe can't bring to you what it doesn't know you need.
I have applied for a couple of different grants or entrepreneurship programs, and there's a very common question that says, like, what is your superpower? What is your strength? And my answer is asking questions and not being afraid to get really granular or really basic and not feeling embarrassed about it. And it's true. Google can only get you so far. Sometimes you have to talk to the people that have, the day-to-day expertise or have been through it before.
Right. I love that as a superpower because it also shows that you're not afraid to show that you don't know something. And I think in society now, sometimes people are afraid of that, right? And so you cannot get help and you can't actually learn unless you show that you don't know something. So
Exactly.
I thank you so much for joining us, Carrie. I really cannot wait to try the showerless shampoo. I also saw you have a package that comes with a shower cap, so I might have to get that one. I'm very excited. But our listeners can visit swearhair.com to shop and learn more. They can also follow you on Instagram and TikTok, which we will link in our show notes. Please subscribe to Manage Chaos Podcast on your preferred podcasting platform, especially YouTube, as we work to increase our subscriber numbers. And comment and let us know what topics you might like for us to cover. We will see you on the next episode of Manage Chaos Podcast.
Outsourcing your US tech talent shouldn't be hard. With Pobble.io, we deliver high quality teams on demand and provide huge cost savings to your business. Try it now at Pobble.io. Mention the amazing guys at Manage Chaos when you email us and get a free market data report. Email contact@Pobble.io.